going to be automated, it's going to be AI-fied, or it's just not needed anymore.
Especially when you have real bills to pay, retirements to plan for, some of those templates have not really changed much.
You've had managerial layer upon managerial layer.
When you have that sudden realization, it can feel very isolating.
I just give myself a flavor and see, is that something that is appealing to me?
And still to this day, having that one certificate, even from a Coursera, will automatically amp up your own confidence to put your hand up and say, I know something.
It's very important to give yourself a realistic view of how long do I want to drag this thing that I don't want to do.
So if I've been a curious person in general, it's going to benefit me somewhere down the line.
Are you going to be a doctor? Are you going to be an engineer, a lawyer, an accountant, or whatever else?
Funnily, we all ended up not being any of those things.
The World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report said that 44% of workers' core skills will change by 2027. That's 50% of your skills. The McKinsey report said that by 2030, another 30% of the workforce could be automated. So it's real. There's a shift. It's not dramatic, it's not instantly panic inducing, but you can feel the sands shifting under your feet. And that's the reaction I'm seeing and hearing in many around me. What do I do next? This worry about what comes next. How will I manage in an ever-changing world because I feel irrelevant or my job is going to become irrelevant. So today let's talk about the realities that such a career transition brings and what you may want to think about doing slowly, steadily to make that transition successful. Welcome to Small Talk Work Play Build. I'm Subha Chandrasekharan, Leadership and Career Growth Coach.
And I'm Hasita. I'm a brand consultant and co-founder at Motley Crue.
So it's real, isn't it, that people are losing jobs and losing their identity along with it. And we've spoken about that, right? Just I think a few episodes ago, that when your career is your identity, the shift
can feel significant.
Yeah. Very significant. And we in our circles have spoken to many folks. We're hearing from friends and others that okay, so it's happening, right? Either I am going to lose my job, or I'm going to be called redundant. It's going to be automated. It's going to be AI-fied, or it's just not needed anymore. So what do I do next?
Yeah.
And the quiet panic is very real, very understandable, because a career transition is never easy, and especially in these, one is that your career is shifting, and there's so much of quiet chaos in your life, and then the world around you is in complete chaos.
Yeah.
It can be scary.
Yeah, especially when you have real bills to pay, real retirements to plan for. Some of those templates have not really changed much, right? And I think a lot of us, when we ask for what is that lifetime career, what we're asking for is safety and security. And if that safety is not going to be given to me by an organization, then how do I go about creating it? And it's very, very real. I mean, as much as in an abstract sense, it's one thing to say, oh, but I'll adapt, but I'll switch. Yeah. I think when the very real aspects of a transition like that, which is you end up making less, or you work in a culture that is a shock to your system, or you have to start from scratch when you haven't done that in many, many years, I think it can be very, very unsettling.
No, definitely. When you said about security, what is interesting is that in some parts of the country, still a government job is such a coveted thing, especially if your parents have been in government jobs. I still hear of distant relatives who are paying for that government job, right? Because then you're kind of set.
Yeah.
Even though it may not be the best use of a good education
Yeah.
that they've given themselves, but they're like, I just don't want to be part of this ever
Rat race.
changing rat
Yeah.
race,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
there's still a value to that. I still meet a lot of youngsters who devote 2 3 years to the whole UPSC
Hmm. Hmm.
endeavor,
Hmm.
because if you can crack it, then somehow
Hmm. Hmm.
you've got it made, right?
Yeah.
Like there is prestige, there's power, there's enough to do,
True.
and all of that. So some of
Hmm.
those jobs also exist. But I think for the rest of us, transitions are just kind of coming up faster than most.
But
Sorry.
also those jobs and the benefits of those jobs, I've seen it up close with a family member. They're all one policy away from changing
Oh,
also.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not that they're
No, no, true,
yeah.
true. That is also very true. But for those in other industries, and I think one is to call out that it's not a very, it's AI and hence tech.
Hmm.
I think this shift is across industries, right? There are many, maybe let's say traditional industries where you've had managerial layer upon managerial layer.
Hmm.
And now, when you're suddenly saying, okay, where is my efficiency going to come from?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
You suddenly don't need those layers.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the unfortunate. And of course, we've spoken about the systemic changes quite a bit, but also I'm thinking, I mean, one, when you have that sudden realization, it can feel very isolating, right? Like
Mm,
it can feel like you're a unique. I mean,
yeah,
as much as the statistics are telling us that 3 out of 10 people are going through this, and those 3 people are not in front of me, is the feeling that I
correct,
often end up with.
correct.
And so, what are the belief systems, I think, first that I need to develop, engage with to say I want to transition?
Mm,
Because I need to transition also is a space that you can operate from, but I feel like that is already going to narrow certain, like you might miss certain doors that are open
mm,
because by then the desperation has set in and there's no other choice. But if
mm,
I had to start today and say, okay, I
mm,
want to transition,
mm,
how do I start identifying what I want to transition into? What
mm.
beliefs do I need?
Mm. But I think we'll come to that. What you said was interesting. I think the first thought that you kind of get that this is not my home for too much longer.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
I think the time to start acting is then,
Hmm.
right? I think many wait for some sign that it's actually going to
Yeah,
change,
yeah.
or can I just drag this and then somehow I will land someplace better.
Hmm.
But I think the minute you get a signal either internally or externally
Hmm.
that hey, this that you professionally are qualified for,
Yeah.
but this is not your home for too much longer because
Hmm.
of many reasons, and a transition is imminent. I
Hmm.
think that's the moment to start thinking about what should I be doing.
Actually, you bring in interesting context. I think as much as there is a lot of need today, people have been making transitions for other reasons which are more,
True.
you know,
Yeah.
self oriented as well, and for better reasons also. I mean, as much as there is a push today where you may or may not have a choice,
Mm.
there are still today those of us who might feel that my skills and my experience and my pedigree might be better served doing something else. And I don't think it's a bad thing that the only way to find that out is to have done something else in the first place. Like, you can't land at conclusion B unless
Yeah,
you've
yeah, yeah.
started with
Correct,
something else.
correct, correct. And sometimes skilling yourself further is one way,
Hmm.
right? A lot of folks look at this as a time to do a new professional course, or do an MBA, or
Yeah.
do some kind of learning program. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that if
Hmm.
you have some idea of where you want to land next, and if you have the ability to fund that, or
Yeah.
figure out a way to pick that up. I think adding professional qualifications from good institutes, or on some kind of a relevant space, even if it's, I don't know, free AI courses that you're
Hmm.
doing
Hmm. Hmm.
online. And today, every other day we see posts about how some university has thrown out a lot
Yeah.
of online courses for free. I think even that's fine. I think adding to your kind of credentials and education
Yeah.
base is a good way to start.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
and especially if you get access to something that's not very expensive, and you can maybe just spend your weekends and say, okay, I've been I don't know, like I've been doing this kind of maybe web development work, etc. I do this project management course online, right? Or I do this maybe intro to digital marketing course online, and I just give myself a flavor and see, is that something that is appealing to me?
Yeah. And still to this day, having that one certificate, even from a Coursera, will automatically amp up your own confidence to put your hand up and say, I know something. And I've noticed this way too many times in my personal life as well.
Correct.
That one course somehow makes you feel a lot more ready to put your hand up.
I think whatever that imposter in you
is going to be silenced a little bit to say I've done the work now.
Correct. Or I know that I am 30% there. This has told me that I'm about 30% there, and I know that the gap is 70. Versus me thinking I'm 70% there.
Or because me thinking I'm 0% there, which is also a
yeah.
Quite capable.
Very much. So I think investing, because and why I'm saying that is, when we say, okay, then just start experimenting. Start trying to see what else you want to do. A lot of pushback is, but where can my workplace doesn't allow it, or where's the time to step out and do something, or who will give me a job, or
And also I think the very real risks of saying I'm in a full-time job, I'm not supposed to be legally. I think we've discussed that in so many different contexts, that organizations, let's be honest, have also benefited from the full-time availability of their employees, or at least the picture of it.
Knowing very well in most cases that they haven't given you a full day's job. I think that's the advantage, right? So in this context, that's your sheer advantage, that if you are able to do an 8-hour day in 6 hours, then smartly use those 2 hours. And that doesn't mean that you do that from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. in the morning, where people are expecting you to be somewhere. But accumulate that in some way and use that time better. But I think experimentation is important. I think trying something else, I won't say easy, but the one way to do it in a more in a quieter fashion is to learn, right? Like to pick up courses, to go for some classes, etc. Because then the world doesn't have to know, and you feel it's a little safer. And then the next is experimenting. It's interesting, and maybe it's an advantage that when in India, at least, when we think of, okay, I need to find a job till I find my next career, right? I need something to bridge it. But for us, those opportunities still largely lie in knowledge work. Like you are not really, I won't say you're not expected, and you don't jump to, I will wait tables at a restaurant, or I'll work in a McDonald's, etc. You can still try and find areas of knowledge work which will tell you whether you like that industry, whether you like that kind of environment, and all of that. Because as much as areas are getting sunset, there is so much more, yes, in AI, in climate tech, in fintech, even in, let's say, HR tech, or even in sustainability, like so many new areas.
Across all areas is growing big time, and it will continue to.
Correct.
Advocacy as a parallel field to that, right? Because we need people who know the subject and also know how to have conversations, which again is a very transferable skill from other areas, I think. Social impact is another, you can only watch other human beings suffer so much. And then you wake up and say, okay, maybe I want to contribute more to that. And we've had guests who've come in and said, we are always waiting for people from other industries to come. And like you said, I think one of the things to be cognizant of, whether in a good way or not, is to be aware that not all of these careers may pay the same way that you've been accustomed to being paid. And it's not natural, right? Our lifestyles expand in proportion to the amount of money that we've been making. So is it always possible to shrink them? No. But there is, I think, one acceptance that might happen, and therefore I'm doing this for something else, and maybe my path to getting back there is a little longer, right? But still, some of the core skills that have brought me thus far will continue to be able to be adapted there as well.
Yeah.
So if I've been a curious person in general, it's going to benefit me somewhere down the line. If I'm good with people, if interactions are my thing, it's going to benefit me in some way, because nobody is going to sign a deal on the other side of the table without talking to another person. So
Correct. No, I think there's two important points there. One is that plan the numbers, right? Financially, it's very important to give yourself a realistic view of how long do I want to drag this thing that I don't want to do, or how long will it allow me to drag things, because at some point I'm
Yeah.
going to go from X to 0.
Yeah.
So do I take control of that narrative and find something at a Y and soft land till I can rise up again? Right. And so, what am I willing to do at the level Y? And what options present myself? Because otherwise, I'll go down to 0 and I might not have the cushion for that. If I do end up at 0, how much is my cushion? Like, when am I hitting that panic button, so to speak? And if I'm at Y, then, remind yourself that I'm at Y for some time. Okay. And what am I going to keep doing, chipping away at to get back up
Yeah.
at X
Yeah.
or X plus? But
Yeah.
but that's the end game.
Yeah.
And set some realistic timelines. And what is realistic for one, honestly, there's no answer to that. But that's where your networks, looking at how other people have transitioned, is very important. How long did it actually take this friend of mine, or this ex manager, or this maybe this boss who I didn't like, but he or she did make that transition from banking to technology sales to something else? What did those cycles look like?
I think that bridge career is an interesting concept that comes to mind there, which is that I may be here and I want to get there. And this is not just money, right? Both in terms of receptivity on the other end.
Yeah.
I may get out of here, but where I want to go, they may ask, but who are you?
Yeah.
What about your work? So, one is to be able to write well about yourself and that whole pitching and cavalier, which we'll come to. But I think what I'm saying also is there might be a period of time between this and this where you might end up doing a third thing, as long as that thing is planned for. So, how is that bridging the gap between where I am right now and then for me to showcase to this other end that I am ready now to get there? So, and it's very identifiable, I think. If you sit down and make a list, it's easy enough, even with conversations, to see that there are 4-5 things that I'm already prepped for, but there are maybe 4-5 things that I can only learn by doing this bridge job. And one, I think, in many ways, it is a bridge to a startup founder, is being the chief of staff somewhere. Right? Like lots of young people take that up because they are not planning to be chief of staff forever. I don't think that's the idea.
That by nature of that role, you're never in it forever.
Yeah.
Right?
And the idea is that tomorrow, if I start up in an industry or a similar domain, or even frankly with similar attributes of wanting to scale a certain way, wanting to raise funding, one, I've learned how to do it. Two, I am in touch with people who can open all those doors. And that itself is a contribution.
Correct. And I think that's also a reminder that be ready to start as a fresher almost in some cases, depending on the nature of your transition. Be ready to not be the smartest in the room or to know everything about what's going on. Be ready to maybe report to or collaborate with someone who's younger than you but knows more because they've been in that industry at least for longer, right? So that there will be, so in a way what we're saying is there will be a financial hit, perhaps there will be an ego hit, perhaps there will be, for many of us, that bit of a reputational hit, like how is the world seeing me now? What are they saying? What are they talking about? And I think that's where it's really important to surround yourself with at least one or two people who are in a similar boat. It's very difficult to kind of wake up every day and meet folks who are very well settled in what they're doing, for what they found their job, career, etc., and things are going well, but to have to interact with only them every day when you are going through so much turmoil.
And it is a period of turmoil, no? I think that's Yeah, having your identity challenged is a big one. I think it's easy to say be the beginner at something, but it's deeply, deeply uncomfortable for a lot of us because
Correct.
we have mentored, we've grown into places of experience, and to suddenly realize, hey, people are not looking up to me anymore can be very, very unsettling.
Yeah. And you need a support group to go through that, because
Hmm.
however well intentioned your successful friend may be, they may not have the ability to say the right things,
Yeah.
or
Also, I feel like the questions you'll ask a successful friend are a little different. Like, you will not ask them, how do I struggle through this, right? Like, because you don't
Mhm.
think they've struggled.
Yeah.
So the question itself will be, how do I get there? And they're probably just answering that in good faith, but that's not where
Yeah.
one might
Yeah.
be.
I had one youngster who says that whoever I ask, they seem to say that, okay, by luck. And that's true. When we look back at our narratives, many times we end up saying, oh, and by luck that chance came, and then by luck this happened, and then by but not everybody can articulate the
Yeah.
effort they put in, especially years later.
Yeah. Yeah.
So don't get disillusioned by the language you're hearing, and
Um,
maybe ask deeper questions. Okay, luck aside, what did you do?
What else? When luck came and knocked on your door, what happened then? Yeah. Yeah. True.
Yeah, that is important. No, career transition is about a lot of little experiments that you have to do, right? Whether it's about researching a new industry, meeting people who've followed a path that seems appealing to you, meeting people who've tried and then given up on that path also could be very useful information,
For as far
right?
as guardrails go. And I
Yeah.
was just thinking that today there is more patience for someone saying, I'm figuring this out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't think that permission existed even a decade
Very
ago.
much.
But today, if someone says, I finished this and now I'm in the process of seeing what else, I think one, we have a lot of patience for it, and two, it opens a lot of doors also
Yeah.
to say, but have you tried this? Have you tried
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. No, interestingly, just the other day we were talking, like, my husband and I, about uh, uh, a daughter who may want to do medicine. And then something came. I said, let her try. If she doesn't want to, she'll do something else. And it was like, you're very comfortable with that. I said, yeah, because they've given themselves the permission, right, as a
Yeah.
generation.
Yeah.
And
Funnily, I was also thinking about the daughter who's probably going to do medicine, because I was just thinking, are there some careers that you can't transition out of? Like, your expertise is so high.
luckily, it's not that way now.
Interesting.
Right. And there are so many who have finished their mbbs, and then they do whatever is required, and then they want to move to the management side, so they come in for an mba,
I hear you.
right?
Yeah.
Or they go into hospital administration, or they are great at, let's say, policy in another kind of organization, etc. So even the conversation with the child has been, yeah, like, because she said, if after a 5-6 year rigor, if I don't really want to specialize, that's fine. You'll find
Interesting. Yeah.
something else, and by then, to definitely, like, that's another 10 years away, something else is going to emerge.
That's true. Yeah.
I think the most liberating thing as a parent of teens now, and hence that generation, has been that I have no idea what's coming up as a career. So I cannot take them down a path. That responsibility is not on me, and they're going to have to figure it out, because that the job that they're going to do most likely doesn't exist today.
Yeah.
Right. So how can I say, oh, are you preparing for that? Do you want to be that? I don't know what that is.
What that is. Yeah.
Right? Our parents knew,
Yeah.
like, are you going to be a doctor? Are you going to be an engineer, a lawyer, an accountant,
Yeah.
or whatever else?
And funnily, we all ended up not being any of those things, right? I mean, I was
Exactly.
just thinking that
Exactly, right? Like,
literally none of those things finally.
and for us, it happened in our 30s, and for me,
Yeah.
40s, etc. For them, it may happen much
Soon.
earlier. But I think the best part is that the societal pressure, the societal viewpoint has reduced significantly. Right? Does it mean that they're all, totally free of that? No, there's still
Other kinds of pressure. I
there's
think
maybe
it's-
social media,
yeah.
peer pressure, all of that, and maybe sometimes the overwhelm of choice. Because that what next also, there's 20 things that present themselves.
Yeah. Which I think what you were saying earlier applies. Unless you try a few things,
Yeah.
it can be a world of information that can be
Yeah.
very, very overwhelming.
Yeah, because so many youngsters say, "Oh, I will do an MBA. I want to be in impact consulting."
Mm-hmm.
That's not an easy job.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not an easy space.
Mm-hmm.
Consulting is very difficult. Impacts even more so.
Yeah.
There are many who want to be in the social sector. There's a lot of good that comes out of it
Yeah.
for you personally and for the communities and society, but there's a lot of hardship that you have to
Yeah.
face in that journey, right?
And honestly, do things you may never have done, because in social versus, a typical
Yeah.
business, you have to constantly keep asking for money, and that doesn't come easily to a lot of us.
Correct. Or even just going and, lobbying for something.
Yeah.
It doesn't come easily. Like, I'd rather sit and code will be somebody's,
Yeah.
if that's my choice. But that turns out it wasn't, because I tried it.
Yeah.
And that's not where I want to be doing the rest of my life.
Mm.
Then maybe sometimes you even transition back
into, yeah, fair.
right? But I think, what are we really trying to say here? That career, if what you're doing right now is your identity, then it's a time and place in the world where you have to start really thinking
Asking,
about
who am I because of this, rather than who am I in the context of this.
Yeah. And that kind of very trope question of where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, I think that timeline has narrowed.
Yeah.
Right? What do you want to be doing next year? And what do you want to be doing a couple of years from then? What's the kind of work that you want to be doing? What energizes you? What do you want to try till you find it?
Yeah.
Right? So many things to ask yourself in this day and age. And I also feel that there are a lot of resources available, whether it's online, whether it's a lot of honestly, there's a lot of us in our 50s and then 60s who are happy to mentor, happy to take on a apprentice, so to speak, happy to work, because we are also trying to figure out what to do with our time and our expertise.
Yeah.
Right?
And this is outside of certain hard skills. Like, you might realize you're really good at pottery, which is also a very real possibility today.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I'm seeing so many youngsters do that, right? Like, there are they're coming in for a certain job interview or a certain university interview, but they're saying, yeah, I also am running a small business, doing this. I'm making something, I'm selling something, I'm doing something, writing for someone. Like, they're figuring out those little gigs
Pockets of,
which are either bridging a financial gap or they are satisfying a skill gap.
True.
Whichever.
That's an interesting,
That's fine. But I think what I like is the willingness to try those things. Some succeed, some fail, call it what it is, then try the next thing or build and scale what you're
whatever
doing.
is exciting.
Right?
Yeah.
But I do feel a huge level of optimism. I think that's the chat GPT rub off. But
no, I think it's interesting to hear also, because the same conversation I've had in other slightly more doomsday scenarios. It is possible to get carried away, but also, like, I'm seeing so many cookbook clubs pop up on Instagram now, and I'm excited about, I think, where we are going with community building as well.
Yeah.
Right? We've spoken so much about these things in theory, how to build communities, how do you do personal branding, but people are actually showing us how easily and effortlessly it can be done, as long as you know the core of what you're setting out to do.
There's a small bookstore / community that has opened up near my home, and I'm yet to visit, and I'm just hopefully I'll go there soon. It's called Kadegal, and I'm just seeing the reels of the two young founders and how intentionally and patiently and with a lot of love they're building this little bookstore cafe / community with events. But somewhere and I don't know their backstory, and I'd love to meet them soon and get to know. But they've also, I'm sure, transitioned from something into this, are giving this a shot. Hopefully, this does really well and they scale. And there are so many like that. And they have the permission.
World, they have permission and they have precedence. They have the Champaka that has already done it. They have those examples in front of them, which, so many permissions given just by that.
Because at least, for a few of the previous generations, You had to be so much more surer before you even tried, and then because you tried, you just had to stick on to it
Yeah, yeah.
till the cows come home. So there were, I think a lot of that kind of pressure has eased, but that doesn't mean it's been made so much easier. There's still
Other kinds of
other
pressures
kind
which,
of
yeah,
pressures,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
um, and there are youngsters who say, but I do want to take that international holiday every year. I do want to travel. I do want to, fly home to see my parents and not have to take a train.
Yeah.
Like, all of that is, your aspirations are still your aspirations. Just, I think, be willing to put in the
But I think there's some weightage of joy there, I think, is what we're saying, which is you can have a bit of both. To what extent only you can be the judge of that.
correct,
Yeah.
correct.
A lot of both. Why not?
So we've done a bit of Simon Sinek here. So that's a bit of optimism for you.
And I was just going to ask, can we please open that printing press and stationery shop? I think this is the best time to do it.
So you'll hear about that from us soon. Stay tuned, folks, and see you next time.
So, in today's episode of Ask ChatGPT, I think I've gotten a little tired of browsing carousels that say the same thing on Instagram over and over again. Blame the algorithm, if you will. So, I've decided to go a little deeper and actually explore topics that are of interest to me or figure out that I wasn't as interested as I initially thought I was, right? And I think monkey see, monkey do situation where the better the question you ask, the better the answers you get. And I've always been curious about understanding the complexity of climate change. And over the years, it has crystallized into climate policy and specifically how it affects the economic structures of the world. So I have asked ChatGPT to help me put together a list of books very specific to this niche that I'm now, this rabbit hole that I'm digging for myself. And it's come back with a list of 8 books. The first one is called The Uninhabitable Earth. So if you're interested, just ask for the list. I'm happy to share it. But I think there's an interesting experiment there to run in terms of what rabbit hole you want to go down.
So my read, watch, listen is essentially, I think, a recommendation of the author as much as this one book. So if you haven't kind of dived into the world of Chitra Banerjee, Devakaruni, please do so. The range of books from the Ramayana and Sita's voice to Mahabharata in Draupadi's voice. That's the Palace of Illusions, the Forest of Enchantments. Lot of stories about young women, powerful lives that they have endured, stories that they have lived to tell of life in India, life abroad, etc. So there's maybe around 20, 30 books at least to choose from. But the one I picked for today is The Last Queen, which is a very powerful tale of, she was the youngest and last Maharani of Manjeet Singh. Story of power, betrayal, love. Her son becomes the king at age 5. She's fighting against the British Empire. This is obviously the character is real. These are true stories in a fictional historical fiction, but lovely tale of motherhood, power, the society at that time, and just sheer survival of a woman in a man's world. So do pick this up.